Sports Professor Rick Horrow, inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports, with your sports news on the record for pre-Labor Day 2025. Yeah, the NFL gives up next weekend, but at the end of the day, college football week 0, quite interesting in Dublin, and week 1 going to be even bigger. U.S. Open happening, Tommy Fleetwood's historic victory, and on. We have gambling personified, an academic and a deal maker after we go through our opening bell. So let's get to it. Opening bell issues 1 through 5. Number 1, Tommy Fleetwood out. Rory McIlroy, 164th career start. He's had 30 top 5s. Now he wins his $10 million. Let's not hold a bake sale for Tommy Fleetwood. His popularity may be unparalleled. Gets tweet text from LeBron, Caitlin Clark, Tiger Woods. Can't do any better than that. $10 million, let's not hold a bake sale for the guy. But the value of this last weekend goes way beyond $10 million. That's number 1. Number 2, the SEC adopts a new 9-game conference schedule to put them on par with the Big 12 and the ACC. They'll play 9 conference games, 3 set in stone, basically, and 6 rotate. The set ones are to preserve the rivalries and guarantee the TV ratings. But at the end of the day, you also have the flexibility of the schedule year after year kicking in 2026. Obviously, all 3 big conferences here, and potentially the Big 12, petition for a merger of expanded playoffs consistent with everybody playing the same kind of schedule. That set this up. That's number 2. Number 3, private equity enters college sports in a big way without the equity. Private funding opportunities like the Texas Development Fund and a $500 million program that Elevate is using with Velocity Capital Management to build infrastructure and other opportunities. Naming rights, sponsorship strategies, and other may carry the day for private equity. At the end of the day, are schools going to be able to give up pieces of their assets in order to generate more money? We don't know. We'll have to see. That's number 3. Number 4, if you're a high school kid and you're looking at NIL, you have to register soon. An NCAA regulation probably says that when your deal is over 600, kind of like the house settlement at the college level, you're going to have to report it and pass muster to get into D1, like a JUCO transfer, and high school kids as well, and just like moving within the D1 system. Patterned after the NCAA settlement, we'll have to see how that all shakes out. Gaming is part of the deal. INIL, clearly part of the deal. Money all over the place. So that's number 4. And number 5, look at Vegas. Well, it used to be the gambling capital of the world, but now the $2 billion A's ballpark looks like it's happening and will be the key to the 4th mega stadium in Vegas, and maybe even more. The NFL team, the NHL team, and now the stadium vertical construction, probably beginning in early October, permits willing. They started with a $1.5 billion estimate. They're now well over 2. Beginning opening day 2028, people in Sacramento say, man, we've got to get out of here pretty quick. But at the end of the day, it is not only the gambling capital of the world. It is now the sports capital of the world, or certainly one of them. What else is happening in Vegas? SEICon had an incredible conference in July, one of the best ever, sports entertainment innovation, co-sponsored and helped by USA Today, but also a panel that I was honored to moderate, talking about the future of gaming and wagering ecosystems. Clearly, the idea of esports, the future of state regulation, the future of other aspects of gaming. Bryan O'Reilly, the CEO and co-founder of Evenplay, a sports technology company utilizing AI handicapping to personalize challenges, offer points-based rewards, and provide real money rewards as well. He provides the entrepreneurial and practical aspect on this panel. And then Dr. Abarbanel, the executive director of UNLV's International Gaming Institute, one of the best in the world, IGI, and Associate Professor of the William F. Harrah College of Hospitality. She leads academic and industry-driven research on gaming operations, esports integration, responsible gambling, and the intersection of gambling and video games. The bottom line is both have an incredible perspective in the practical and the academic. And here's Dr. Abarbanel and Bryan O'Reilly now.
Skill-based concept. We're very familiar with this concept. Sports, that is the core of everything that we try to develop. Build your skills, build your talent, practice, practice, practice. These are all core areas of sports. Sorry, my mother's office was a great time. So she's interested as well. So this is a very important space. We're talking about this very core skill-based area. We build it up. One of the main areas that we've learned, especially recently, that's really valuable in the learning process is the concept of gamification. This idea of building in tools and games that will help us learn. This is an entire area of research. We have researchers at UNLV who study the specifics. Go to conferences all over the world in both academia and industry to look at how to better gamify your learning experiences. And I don't go too into depth in that because that's basically what Bryan does. So I'll hand it to you in a second here. But as we continue going through this space, gamification often takes on different characteristics. And those characteristics, as they start to incorporate randomness, as they start to incorporate chance, that moves them closer and closer into a gambling type space. And depending where you go around the world, you're going to see different products, different games defined differently along that spectrum, simply based on how it's defined by that particular area. So we'll talk a little bit about how sports betting looks very different here in the state of Nevada compared to some other states in the U.S., compared to other jurisdictions around the world. And that's because we defined it in a particular way. It will be very different if you go to Washington State. It will be very different if you go to Singapore. It will be very different if you go to Germany. And even more fun along the way, it will change a little bit with time. Like right now, Germany is my last example. They're about to change the regulations around gambling in that country, as well as in various states within that country. So this idea really is a very concept. You can start with something that's completely skill-based, completely chance-based, and in between there's this massive gray area where different concepts of gaze and gambling will fall.
It's three-dimensional chess at the very least, because you've got 50 states, the federal government, and the Baltic Supreme Court who made the ruling, and then ultimately they interpret or intend to interpret. And then you got the international conventions. This is an example of Germany, but you've got the states within each of those countries as well. And the definition of gambling and gaming and other collateral issues change from time to time. Does that make it easier or harder for an entrepreneur who wants to assume some certainty as you grow and scale your business?
Certainty would be great in every jurisdiction, but you don't get that.
Right.
I think you look at every jurisdiction defines what gambling is differently. The one thing they do agree on is basically there is a skill-based exemption and there is a pure definition of what gambling is and what gaming is. And the two have, like I said, different vernaculars even, like if you're going to lay a wager or a bet on something, you're betting and it's considered gambling. In a skill-based exemption world where we live, it's considered a challenge fee and you can win a prize or reward. So we based 8 patents on that and have approvals for over 44 states to launch in under a skill-based exemption ruling.
Skill-based exemption is an interesting concept. I assume the definition of what skill-based is changes from state to state, or does it?
It does.
Yeah. And so you mentioned earlier about a California example. Tell people a little bit about, give us an example of what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, it's California alone. You're betting on someone to do something. You're betting on yourself to do something. One would be considered gambling. One would be considered skill-based. So like if you're betting on yourself to be able to accomplish something, that's basically you against yourself. That's your skills determining the outcome of the event. If someone else is betting on you, it's your actions that they're betting on, or two people's actions, that's considered betting. So when we do what we do, our patents and machine learning AI allows you to basically bet on yourself and your actions and your skills.
Interesting. This description is about as accurate and as detailed as you're going to get from anybody in the world, and yet there are still loopholes and areas where you're not certain and it's not clear. Back in the leather helmet days when I was trying to keep abreast of the law, remember we talked about what is a game of skill versus a game of chance lottery wise, and what do you do with that? And that's all evolved as well. And so how do you ultimately create a regulatory framework to deal with all of this? Do you take enlightened states and then exchange best practices, or it's just willy-nilly?
Both. It kind of depends on who's in charge and what they feel like doing that today. Some states have decided to emulate what other states have done, so there's some form of harmonization that you'll see between certain states. And when I say states, I mean U.S. states. They'll go for harmonization. I.e., EU member states. Some states have harmonization. There are collaborative groups that you'll see between regulatory agencies that will try to work toward, if not harmonized regulation, in which you're actually getting those same regulations across, perhaps license recognition. So if I require a gambling license in Massachusetts, then the DAR will see that review and consider that without making it go through an entire license application. Because once you step into that gambling space, that immediately applies very significant, strict requirements for whether a crowd is. So in this state, when Bryan talks about pretty much every state in the United States, when Bryan talks about having a skill game exemption, that means he does not have to do how do you sound more bridge? I use curse word here.
It's fine.
Slow to speak. And don't use that word. So here's an example. So I'm going to use Internet Me as an example. Who has seen the photograph of Margaret Townsend, programmer who helped send a man to the moon in the 60s? She's standing up next to a pile of paperwork this high, standing like this. Is this familiar? It's the code she wrote to send people to the moon. Right? Some nods. That's approximately how much paperwork you have to complete to get a gambling license in almost any jurisdiction. So having a form of harmonization, or at least some recognition to be very safe, means that you have a much easier time going from place to place. And we talk about these sorts of products, whether it's gambling, it's a halified game, some other form of game. These are things that aren't just right here, right? Like Rick and Bryan and I each put a fiver down about who will run around the pool the fastest. Either that I just learned that Bryan runs ultra marathons. I'm fairly sure we would be making the terrible bet. But that's not the way most gambling games in general works. They're digitized. They cross borders without a care in the world about what that border is, a line in the map. So when we talk about all these various differences, it's very difficult for regulators to, one, bring together what they already see. Some will see what's there and say, it's not for us. We have very different cultural applications of this form of risk-taking, so we're going to do something different. And at the same time, it doesn't matter in many cases. They then have to accommodate new changes in technology and new means of access to all of these things.
So give us an example of the massive paperwork you either got to go through or avoid, depending on whether. So the threshold is a GLI certification, or is there more than that as you apply to make your world easier or not?
For skill-based gaming, it's just like a normal business, but we've taken extra steps to validate, the integrity of our games. So GLI has certified that we do not have anything to do with the outcome of a game. We're only taking the data from it and proposing challenges based on the data we receive. So we've taken the extra steps to make sure that the integrity of the game is there and the security is there. What we haven't done is go through a regulatory process to get licensed in a gaming jurisdiction, because we don't want to be taxed like a gaming company. And that alone could set precedent. So if we went through Nevada, who requires skill-based gaming to be regulated, we'd be treated as a gaming company, a skill-based gaming company, but taxed as a gaming company, therefore possibly setting precedent for every other jurisdiction to possibly tax us like a gaming company. Right now, it's a normal tax, just like a regular business.
So for some who haven't studied the bios and the company, spend a minute talking about Evenplay, what you do, how you do it.
So just a little bit of my background. I brought Topgolf to Vegas, and when they had first started, and we built what became kind of their flagship for the rest of the world. When I brought it to the Strip, MGM Caesars, they told me we're not putting a driving range on the Strip. What I had to do was convince them is this is the next form of entertainment. This is what people want out of home. They want experiences. They want sports. They want some place like the next Starbucks where they can do things. When we built it, I've tried to put in challenge bays, which were head to head. We put in a sports book. We put in slot route, testing what I thought could be the next form of gaming. What I watched when I sat there were people exchanging money all day long on creating their own games. So they had hockey teams there that were literally hitting the button as fast as they could for balls to come out and hitting it as fast as they could for a high point. So winner takes all scenarios. I knew there's a demand for this. And when Callaway ended up buying us, because I was a partner in this local Topgolf here, my friend had written a patent on man versus machine wagering, which means for the first time ever, you can basically analyze someone's skill, offer them a specific challenge to their skill level, and allow them to wager or put a challenge fee towards that to win money back. So it's the first of its kind gaming vertical in which someone could actually bet against themselves. What's great about Evenplay is through AI machine learning, if my son's a 20 handicap and I'm a 10 handicap, he can play against me and still have an opportunity to win because his circles will be so much bigger than mine. If he hits, 2 good shots out of 5, he's got a chance of getting 800 points. And if I fluff it, I got 2, he wins the match. So it also sets the playing field. So future tournaments, if I wanted to have tournaments against myself and others, we can level set the entire playing field against me, against Tiger Woods, to be able to play and win. So the future, what I see in gaming is not just a slot machine pool. It could be something where there's a predictive hold through all the data we have that we could potentially hold about 10% over the course of, let's just say it's 1,000 challenges. So it becomes what I think is the next version of what slot machines entertainment are.
Next time you play him anything competitive, if he doesn't give you twice the space, you call me. I'm your lawyer. All right, just remember that. You call me. I'm your lawyer. So obviously, Bryan and his entrepreneurial spirit and vision are navigating a fairly complicated space to his visionary economic and business benefit. As the executive director of the UNLV International Gaming Institute, you see a lot of Bryans, but you see a lot of other folks who have taken different approaches to this whole world. Is there a template? What's the brand desire long term? Do you want to be the kind of good housekeeping seal of approval for all things gaming, or is that too aspirational or too soon?
I don't think that's too aspirational. It's just not an inspiration, but that definitely is just an option. The seal of approval, I just think that people would try and pay us killers.
Yes.
Like every other, right?
Yeah.
So with what we do, we study, educate, and innovate the space of gambling in this space. So this is pretty broad spectrum, same kind of spectrum that I talked about 18 minutes ago. And this broader space really is fascinating. What we do, we have an entire research arm, so we've got quite a few research projects across various applications of AI. Of course, our everybody's favorite buzzword, the same power. I hear is big tomorrow morning. Sing being that you mentioned earlier, told me fantastic. Everyone should check it out. 2 subjects on harm prevention, of course, gambling and anything with risk incorporate space in which people might experience harm, whether that's as extreme as gambling disorder or even just experiencing loss. That's a customer service project where you want someone to remain happy if they have lost someone. We have work that goes on, and there's education spaces who work with different regulators from all around the world to provide education courses on new subjects that you should up. We have a Center for Gaming Innovation, which builds games, sells IP. We have a few startups that have gold out of that, which is fantastic. If you are a student at UNLV or may in the future be a student, or just feel already enrolling in a semester-long class, we offer that. It will be this fall. And it's built around entrepreneurship. We also have a variety of other major educational too. So our major aspiration, if you will, is to be the place that is the area of expertise, providing red education, place where you could go, no matter what it is that you do, and we're just taking to learn more and build.
A political announcement and broadly defined, because there's no better program. It's just, and speaking of location, I assume the casino and the gambling industry are very supportive of your efforts.
Generally, yes. We really tried to build up a rapport. We've been around for 32 years now. And one of the most wonderful things, and this is a huge academic thing, that having these sorts of relationships need is that it's not just about providing advice, that it's also being able to provide criticism and have that received just as well as us.
Yeah, which is a great, if you don't have the support of the casino industry in Las Vegas, you better go somewhere else. That's would be the answer. So Bryan, talk a little. We talked about it before. The wall around Nevada. Explain that whole conversation we had earlier to the audience.
I'm not necessarily, it's a wall. I think, Nevada needs to innovate a bit more in regards to their view on skill-based gaming versus what gambling is. As you know, daily fantasy sports is not in Nevada at this point. And to go through that paperwork stack, as she said, the F in paperwork stack is just not something a small company like mine could do. Nor could they be taxed like a gaming company. It just wouldn't work for us. So if there was a methodology in which some of these states like Nevada, who should be the leader, to look at things a little differently, innovators like us could grow more companies here.
Interesting. Your perspective on that same issue?
Sure. I think one of the most important things to recognize, and this has been really common, especially as sports betting has grown within America as a whole, because we're talking about this growth since 2018, for those who aren't familiar, it's in court overture, passed by the Professional Protection Act, which allowed states around the U.S. to introduce betting laws. That's what it's to do. And now we have it's 37 plus the District of Columbia, possibly 38 if Missouri actually moves. And states where previously we had 4, 3 of whom didn't really do much, and the last one was Nevada. So this growth has been pretty astronomical. And the thing to remember with any sort of government agency, so of course we'll include gambling regulators as well in that, is that they move slowly. And they move even more slowly if they have decades and decades and decades of pre-existing law and bureaucracy that already exists. I know I get at least one hand accept this. At least one person proof. Does anybody know the last time Nevada has legalized gambling 3 times? Has it also banned it twice before the last time? How long has gambling currently been legal in Nevada? What year did person is I that's it. I'm gonna put change. Here a number. I'll say it out loud in a second.
Yeah, there you go. Good answer.
19.
31.
Yes, 1931. Right, fantastic. I'm so glad to remember my lecture. That's the last end of that.
Was that a depression-oriented move?
So generally the way it's gone is we legalize it because it seemed like the thing to do, kind of a Wild West type thing. It was a big scandal. We said, oh, when then we damned it. There was legalized again. Scandal. Oh. Well, and then, we damned it again, and here we are. Somewhat related, certainly, to the Great Depression, but also just with general, while since the scandal, this seemed like the type of thing we wanted to do. It was already happening anyway.
And oh, by the way, you get a lot of revenue. So it obviously is a big deal.
Interesting perspective on all things gambling from Dr. Abarbanel and Bryan O'Reilly. But let's look at the closing 5 to watch heading into Labor Day and beyond. Number 1, the College Playoff Committee adopts some new policies and metrics beginning of the 2025 season, evaluating schedule strength and the addition of a record strength metric, which certainly enhances the opportunity of creating strength of schedule and strength of schedule with losses not penalized as heavily. The 5 highest ranked champions automatically qualify. The top 4 automatically get buys. The first rankings revealed November 4, Selection Day December 7. The cry for an expanded playoff system already starting pretty quickly. Number one. Number two, Madrid, NFL, Dolphins, Commanders looking to control the market and seeing how they move forward. And the NFL strikes a deal with Sports Illustrated as its official fan experience partner for the NFL games in Spain. The ticketing company has hospitality and also generating NFL experience. Madrid, the NFL watch party. Remember when the Kansas City Chiefs tried to do that for Frankfurt and Munich and basically taking over Germany? They certainly have a great inroad in that. Last year, Brazil, the same way. Jaguars attempting to do the same thing in England. More is on the way. That's number two. Number three, Bay FC 40,000 plus, 40,091 at Oracle Park. The match branded the show at Oracle Park, a 3-2 win, the Washington Spirit. The bottom line is this is bigger than the Wrigley Field game, smashing the sports attendance at 35,000 in that game. The NWSL gets bigger and bigger with more public shows of substantial economic support, such as attendance. We'll see how that shakes out by the end of the season. So that's number three. Number four, Madden NFL, his 25 plan, the game, seeing a sharp decline in fan and player engagement, about 23% decline, according to Video Game Insights. Median play time fell to 19.9 hours on PlayStation and 10 hours on Xbox, compared to 25 and 13 respectively. 60 hours versus 77 on Xbox. Why? Well, because people are committed to other things now before the season, but you would say before the season, that's exactly when you should be able to develop these kind of fan avidities. Well, we'll see what happens. But also, EA Sports College Football 25, remember, made their announcement, and we'll have to see how that has an overall impact in the process of lowering the planned engagement for both products. Again, something we'll have to see. Number four, ATP and PIF elevate the analytics with Tennis IQ, sponsored by PIF, the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund. The enhanced system accessing free for up to 22,000 singles players on the ATP and ATP Challenge Tour. Individualized performance, data, insights, nutrition, a whole host of advantages that the proponents say will support the players' competitive preparation and underscores the democratization of access. It's a marketing ploy, but a good one. And it's done right at the beginning of the US Open. And then finally, Netflix and YouTube break all sorts of streaming records in July. 47.3% of all TV viewing was streaming. The largest monthly streaming number ever. 8.8% was Netflix, and 13.4% is YouTube. Roku about 2.8%, and others behind it. Listen, that's the future of this. We all understand it, and the bottom line is it's only getting bigger and only getting better. Well, that's our show for today. We'd like to thank Bryan O'Reilly and Dr. Brett Abarbanel for giving us some insight into gaming on the heels of the incredibly successful Sports Entertainment Innovation Conference with USA Today in early July. We'd like to thank Callie Kazara for putting this together. We'd like to thank you, as always, for listening and watching. Join us once again next week when we go inside the $1.6 trillion business of sports. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.